Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services here this morning, we would kindly ask if everyone would please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
Good morning, first of all. Thank you for being here. I'm Rabbi David Englander of Congregation Bethel, and together with our Rabbi Emeritus Aaron Krupnick and our Chazan, Elisa Pomerantz Boro, it's our sad honor to be with this special and loving family today as you come together to honor the life of your beloved husband and father and brother and grandfather and friend, Marshall Harris. The flag on the casket already indicates one aspect of Marshall's dedication to country. We know that the dedication to family and to the values by which he lived remained strong throughout his life. It's our opportunity today to not only remember it, but to structure a service in connection to the Jewish identity in which Marshall took such pride. And so we will turn first to the words of the biblical book of Psalms as Chazan Pomerantz Boro chants from that liturgy.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echzar, binotei yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanaleni, nafshi yeshover yanecheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo hirara ki ata imati shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni tarach lefanai shulchan neged zorerai dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov chesed yirdefuni koyem echayai v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He guides me on paths of righteousness. God revives my soul for the sake of his glory. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in the sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. Janice and David, Nadine, Ken family, it's heartbreaking to be in front of you here today to pay tribute to your father. I know that this has been a long and hard-fought battle. I know that at least over the last 5 or 6 years, Marshall has tried again to rally, to be with you, and to continue to be the patriarch of this family. I also know that during that time, no matter how taxing it was on all of you, you were there for him, making him stronger and giving him the will to live. We have shared over the years many simchas with Jennifer and Jonathan and your family, celebrating so much of what life has had to offer in terms of sweetness and joy. I know how proud your grandfather was of you. But I also know, because I saw it on with my own eyes, how strong you were for him. And it's a testament to your enduring love and to the strength that he shared with you, that he made it this long. And today we'll pay tribute to his memory and feel his guiding influence, one that will never die in your family. For as long as you shall live, he shall live through you, as you pay tribute to the goodness that made him such a very special man. I'm going to call on you, David, to speak first.
Growing old is a gift. Growing old with the woman you love is a blessing. And growing old enough to see 3 new generations of your family thrive and blossom, that's something truly special. From generation to generation, Lador Vador, my dad was truly blessed. I'd like to start off by thanking everyone for being here. It means a lot to me, my brother, my mother, his sisters, and I know it would have meant a lot to my dad to see you all here today. Thank you all for your support. Everyone plays the hand they're dealt in life, and my dad was lucky enough to have been dealt the hand that led him to my mother, literally. The way this story goes is that he lost the game, but he won her name in a game of poker. So if you ask me, I'd say he's the real winner. But it's a true story. If it wasn't for that lucky hand in poker, they would have never met, and I wouldn't be here to talk today. He was blessed. My parents spent 66 wonderful years together, and my father worshiped the ground my mother walked on. From their first date on, they were inseparable. My mother meant the world to my father and vice versa. They were head over heels in love. Their love was an inspiration to everyone who had the privilege of knowing them. They were blessed. My father was a family man. He always put family first. It was important to him that we stay connected and have relationships with both sides of our family, near and far, from Passover Seders in Massachusetts to the Deal Country Club in New Jersey. We would drive along the coast to see every Harrison boss we could. Seeing family and staying connected is a blessing. Growing up, our family bond was strong. People always thought Dad was a tough guy, the disciplinarian in the family. And don't get me wrong, me and my brothers heard my mom say, "Wait till your father gets home," on more than one occasion. But I think secretly he had a soft spot. On our family trips to Florida, he would always drive, swearing up and down that this is the year we weren't going to stop at Disney World. But like clockwork, every year he'd get tired when we were a few miles from the exit and make my mom drive so he could take a nap. Lo and behold, 10 minutes later, we'd be waking him up from the parking lot of the Magic Kingdom, ready for a day of fun. Of course, he always knew we were going, but he liked to make it exciting for us. I'm not saying our road trips were always smooth sailing, though. Some of them were more explosive than others, especially when we didn't stop for fireworks south of the border. Me, a heartbroken 10-year-old, didn't take that well. When we stopped at a rest area, I took matters into my own hands. Running away to get fireworks with a superhighway on one side and an alligator-infested swamp on the other. And of course, my dad chasing me down, both of us scared for my life. It was at this point, I chose the swamp. Before I was at Gator's lunch, my father caught me. And needless to say, we didn't get fireworks that year. Dad, I forgive you. Dad was always there for my brothers and me. As our scout leader, he helped us make our model race cars. Mine was always the fastest. He'd take us camping. We'd roast hot dogs over the fire, make s'mores, and camp out under the stars. As a family, we'd explore Cowan's Gap. I still remember sitting on top of the back seat of my dad's convertible as we drove through. The time we spent together as a family was a blessing. After a career of serving as a lawyer for our country, giving a voice to the little guys, my parents enjoyed retirement by traveling the globe. At least twice a year, they would go on once-in-a-lifetime trips. I could stand here and list all the countries they've traveled to, but it might be quicker to name the ones they didn't see. From China to Africa, they saw it all. Drinking wine in Italy to praying at the Western Wall in Israel. They went on the best of adventures. But I think the thing they liked most about these trips, more than anything else, was spending time together. What more can I say other than he was blessed? He was a man I looked up to. A man that was respected by many, and a man who I feel blessed to have been able to call Dad. I love you so much, Dad. I want to thank you for always being there for me and helping to make me the man I am today. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for you, and I'll miss you always. You've blessed my life, and your memory will be a blessing for generations to come. You will always be in my heart. I love you, Dad.
Ken will make his way up as well.
Well, that was beautifully said, much better than I could say, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know how King Charles got up and spoke about his mom last year when she passed. Like her, my dad was old when he passed away, but it doesn't make it any less sad or painful. And I'm a bit of a crybaby too. My father lived his life with modesty and humility. His amazing life was very much understated by him. He was very bright. He attended and completed college at an early age, and he was the only member of my family who actually enlisted in the military and fought at a war. Yet he was not boastful when I acknowledged his service every Veterans Day. As a rock and anchor for my family and others he knew, I'm sure it was difficult to be less physically able in his last years, yet he lived almost in his entire life with youthful looks and vigor. A lot of Teresa and my friends that we bumped into really didn't know if they were my siblings or parents early on. As my mom would say, they traveled the world together, as David mentioned as well. And he really lived all of his life with love and compassion. To me, he was a quiet hero. To be honest, as a physician, I'm always a little nervous around lawyers, and there are a number of them here today. But Marshall, however, as a career-long attorney for the Department of Labor, was a steadfast champion for the American laborer, and he ensured safety in their workplace. And I was also told that he was an early member of the NAACP as it was emerging, eager to promote equality and human rights. Personally, however, Marshall was a champion to our family. He had limitless love and devotion to his wife, Janice, and for their marriage of nearly 67 years. And, you know, I feel I have some of his flaws. I can be somewhat shy around new groups of people. After all these years, I still can't cook. As Teresa, my wife, can attest, I'll stare for minutes as the phone rings right next to me until my wife picks it up. Not a phone person. But I gained so much from his example of living. Through his strong, unwavering, loving relationship with his wife, Janice, and children and extended family, and by experiencing his quiet strength and resilience through trying times and illnesses, and by witnessing a strong moral compass, he always strived to do what was right and support the truth. His family and the world are in a better place because of him. I love you, Dad.
Thank you, David and Ken, for the beautiful reflections. Glad you decided to speak in age order. That was a good choice. So I was privileged to learn something of the life of Marshall Harris from you, from those who knew him the best and loved him the most during a conversation just a couple of days ago at the home shared for many years by Marshall and his beloved Janice. You told me that in some ways Marshall was a survivor and fighter all of his life, contracting polio as a child as well as a blood disease. His family incorporated a Jewish tradition of adding a name to the name he was given, I assume, at his bris. That is why he is Chaim Hirsch Mendel. Mystically, we might understand that this is to confuse the angel of death and throw that angel off of their track. Practically, we understand that this is one of many efforts to do all that we can to save a life. And this is remarkable. I was prepared to skip it if you mentioned it, but I just have to remind you of the power of this little tidbit, which is that people traveled to where young Marshall was living at the time to attend his funeral. But Marshall surprised them all, and it would not be the last time. Other surgeries would be endured by this bright, smart, and handsome man, the last of which for sure took its toll. One other close call that you told me about was when he was basically on the bus to the front lines of the Korean War's deadliest battle, when somehow someone needed a lawyer. or at least someone who knew something about the law. And he was pulled off of that line and put to work in a safer station. And as hard as it is to understand the twists and many turns of fate, we are for sure grateful that he came back home to you, safe and sound. If we're fortunate in life, we get to make a living doing something we find meaningful and which makes a positive difference in the lives of others. As a labor lawyer focused on his career at OSHA, he was involved in decisions of workplace safety that benefited many thousands of people. The result of this kind of work is something that can be easy to take for granted, but each way that safety is ensured so that no one is unnecessarily endangered is the result of the dedication of civil servants who work in a quiet and dedicated way for the betterment of everyone. It is easy, I was thinking, to confuse the government with those we see on TV frequently and the bombast and rhetoric involved with all of that, but in actuality, it is those working and persevering behind the scenes who ensure that we come as close as we can to achieving the nation's goals. So we were looking for Betty's Hebrew name. We didn't find it. But we found David and Nadine's wedding card. Thanks to my predecessors, we are very good with record keeping at Bethel, but that started in about 1970. Your wedding, of course, took place a generation after Marshall and Janice were wed in 1956. But on your wedding card was recounted that both parents are concerned about instilling values and beliefs in their children. I can only assume this was referring to the way you described your parents, including your dad, in advance of your wedding. It is touching to know, even in times that have turned toward the challenging and also the mysterious, that Marshall and Janice were indeed the loves of each other's lives and truly inseparable. The travel that was mentioned, including to Israel, which they thoroughly enjoyed exploring. Retirement for Marshall would include golf, poker, and a continued connection to the Boston and Lynn area, a place he never forgot and the source of an accent that he never lost. You are multi-generational members of the Bethel family. I think you said yours was the third bar mitzvah celebrated in the new building. And you participate in walking the Torahs from Chapel Avenue across town to Voorhees. I know this represented therein your commitment to synagogue and Jewish continuity and was an expression of deep Jewish pride. You have each and all picked up on and reflected the values your parents and grandparents exemplified and taught, whether in Jewish terms or finding ways to make a positive difference by living kind, considered, and reflective lives of meaning. It is clear that this is what you have done and will continue to do, each in your own way, as will the next generation and the one after that, thanks in part to the stories that will be told about the life of a dedicated, patriotic, competent, and loving man being remembered today. If I might, you mentioned your favorite Passover Seder song, Chad Gadya, which you couldn't get enough of in Marshall's strong Boston accent. It's a nursery rhyme of sorts, but I want to tell you that it's something more than that. It is also a kind of prayer. Because after the cat and the stick and the dog, after everything, God comes and slays the angel of death, the one that mystically at least pursued Marshall as a young child and took another chance at him on a bus whose last stop was a battlefield from which many did not return. The prayer is that one day this angel will be put out of business entirely and no one will suffer the pain of loss anymore, whether tragic or what is considered more timely. Until then, we face loss with as much courage as we can gather, support and lean on each other, on community, on faith, and the certainty that the great love that is shared during a lifetime does not disappear when that lifetime comes to its earthly conclusion. May you always feel your beloved Marshall Harris's presence in your lives as you remember him with admiration and appreciation for his accomplished life, and even more for his positive and lasting impact and influence on each of you. So I extend my condolences and those of the Bethel family. To Janice, you are loved and you are supported on a difficult day. To Steve and to Ken and Teresa, David and Nadine, to Sandy and to Lenny, to grandchildren and their spouses, Richie, Lucas and Erica, Nathan, Mairi, to Evan and Marshall and Janice's to Marshall and Janice's great-grandchild, Jasper, to all the nieces and nephews who mourn the loss of an uncle and great-uncle. We say, Tehei nishmato tzura b'tzura chayim, may the soul of Marshall Harris be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Turn now to the El Male memorial prayer, in which we invoke Marshall's full Hebrew name, and the names of his parents. Only those comfortably able to do so are invited to rise physically. If not, you are welcome to rise in spirit instead, as we hear the El Male chanted by our Chazan.
El Male Rachamim Shochein Bameromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanafei HaShechina B'malot Kedoshim U'Tehorim Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Chaim Hirsch Mendel Ben Yitzchak V'Betty Shehalach Le'olamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Ana Balarachamim Hastireu Beseter Knafecha Le'olamim Utzro B'tzro Chaim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach B'shalom Mishkavo V'nomar Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Chaim Hirsch Mendel, Ben Yitzchak V'Betty, Marshall Harris, who has gone to his eternal home, merciful one. We ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. You're invited to be seated for another few moments.
share this